This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, and our Moonlighter for this week is a familiar face, a familiar voice, because we had him on last football season. He's a Johnston, Iowa native. His name is Reid Sinnett, the third-string quarterback for your Miami Dolphins. That's right. Reid is coming back on the podcast. If you've been following us for a while, you know that we had Reid Sinnett on the podcast last year, and at that time, he was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was the third-string quarterback at that time by the Buccaneers. And as fate would have it, and I felt so bad about this, not like it had an impact, but it just was weird, that the day we released Reid's podcast last season, he got released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it was kind of crappy because, you know, Reid's out there trying to pump our podcast on the day he got cut from his first job in the NFL as a backup for Tom Brady at that time. But Reid, being the great NFL prospect that he is, got picked up a couple of days later by the Miami Dolphins, where he spent all of last season mostly on the practice squad, but he did suit up for a few games last season as mostly the practice squad QB for the Dolphins. Of course, this season they got Tua Tagovailoa as their starting quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, the savvy veteran, as their backup, and Reid, once again, is the third-string quarterback for Miami. Now, last preseason with Tampa Bay, Reid did not get any action in the preseason. This season, he actually had a big-time preseason moment, and I'm not sure if you guys have caught this, but week 2 of the preseason, Reid saw his first game action in an NFL uniform and looked really good. Week 3 comes, and this year, week 3 was the last game of the preseason, and Reid played the entire game as a quarterback for the Dolphins and threw for the most preseason passing yards in the NFL in the last 5 years. He threw for 343 yards and had 2 touchdowns, the last of which was an awesome scramble play, about a 50-yard pass to win the game right at the end, and Reid on social media blew up, and at that point, we're like, hey, we got to get Reid Sinnett back here on the podcast because he's a Moonlighter. And so our goal here is to get Reid on the podcast at the start of every NFL season. And this year, this interview was better than our interview last year. I think Reid, you can tell he's a pro's pro now. He's comfortable in his role. This is a really fun conversation. Obviously, we got to bring the trusted co-host, Tommy Griffin, back into the fold for this one because Tom, you know, Reid's from Johnston, Iowa. Tom is probably the most successful middle school football coach in Johnston middle school history. Tom coached, he didn't coach Reid, but he did coach Reid's brother at Johnston. And so, you know, we got to pick Reid's brain for some NFL knowledge here and how we make Tom a better and even better middle school football coach as well. But I think you guys are going to really love this week's episode with Reid Sinnett. I mean, especially, it feels like the future is really, really bright for Reid after that preseason he just had where he showed the rest of the NFL what kind of potential is sitting there on the Dolphins practice squad. And if you're following the NFL 2 days ago, Tua, the starting quarterback for the Dolphins, got hurt, right? And so I don't know if he's going to be playing this upcoming week. He might have a couple of broken ribs. So this might be the week where, hey, Reid sees some actual game action this coming weekend. So the tides might be turning. Last year we released the pod and Reid got released. This week we're releasing the pod, and maybe Reid gets on that active roster this coming week here for the Dolphins. This is a really fun episode. I think you guys are going to like it, and I think if you do like it, go out and follow Reid. You know, show him some Iowa, some Moonlighter support there from our audience. I think we would really appreciate that. So enjoy this week's episode with Moonlighter, Reid Sinnett. Reid, how you been?
Can't complain. It's been pretty good. It's nice to be down here, and like you said, the Florida sun, it's treating me well.
Where are you sitting right now? Like, do you have an apartment? Do you have a condo?
Yeah, I'm just sitting in my apartment.
All right, so like
I'm about to move, so we're might have a different living situation here shortly.
Yeah, what's that like? Like when you're a practice squad guy, how comfortable can you be with your living situation?
Well, Florida specifically has the worst rules. So it's either you have to pay 2 months to break your lease, or you just have to pay until somebody else takes it. So you can't really be too comfortable with it. And living in an apartment doesn't make that any easier, because really you could be moving anytime.
So I'm pumped that you're back on the pod. Not only am I excited about it, but last year we had you on the podcast. We released the podcast, and then I think you got released the same day. And we're like, oh man, Reid's going to hate us forever that he got cut on the same day we released the pod. And now, you find your way to Miami. You have this preseason game in the third game of the season where you just light it up. Most passing yards in a preseason game since 2017, 22 for 29, 343 yards, 2 touchdowns. You were the man that day. What was that game like to be playing your first real game in a couple of years?
It was awesome. And all week, going into it, I got to be a part of some of the game planning and stuff. And so, they're obviously still, Tua and Jacoby are taking all the training camp reps and stuff, but there was a couple periods at the end where it was kind of the guys that were going to play in that game that got to practice. And it felt so good to be a part of that and have the coaches be focused on, the game plan and what we were doing. And it felt, throughout the week like I was going to be the starter. And the night before the game, the three of us, Tua, Jacoby, and I, and Charlie, Fry, the quarterback's coach, and our assistant Jordan, we were all sitting in there, and Jacoby kind of was like, this is so cool, man. There's so many kids that want to play in an NFL game, and you get to start and play in an entire one. He's like, I don't give a shit if it's the preseason or the regular season, but there's so many kids that don't ever get a chance to do that, and that's their dream. So, go out and play like that. And it was such, I'm a pretty mellow guy throughout the game. I try to not let my emotions get too high or too low, but that was a pretty cool, exchange to have with Jacoby the night before the game.
Was it fun to get on social media and see your name, kind of bouncing up on social media that night?
It was. And I got back to the locker room, and it honestly didn't even cross my mind. And my phone didn't stop buzzing for 2 days. And it's a really fun feeling. And then it becomes overwhelming at some point where it's guys like you reach out to me, and we have a relationship and I want to get back to you, but my phone's been buzzing for 2 days. I've kind of had enough. Hey, Mila. But I've kind of had enough, and then I didn't feel like I was able to get back to everybody. So it was a lot of fun, but kind of a overwhelming. My phone literally didn't stop.
Yeah. Did you know then going into that game, obviously you have this great game, you pop up, you have a great outing, but then you get released the next day or a couple of days later. Did you know that was coming, or was that a surprise to you? How does that go?
So going into the weekend, I kind of thought that I was going to be the practice squad quarterback. There's 3 of us. I kind of felt like that was where we were going, and I felt comfortable about my spot with the organization. But my goal was kind of to try to force the organization's hand to put me on the active roster. And so that's kind of my approach going into that week was, I can show them the things that I can do that I haven't been able to show in practice, and maybe I can force their hand. And I felt like I put it all out there on the field. And so it was a really, really high to go through that. And then, I'm walking out of the locker room of practice that day, and somebody grabs me, and I immediately know what's coming. And so that, kind of frustration, and then the next 24 hours of uncertainty, because anybody can pick you up. They don't call your agent. They don't do anything besides just, pluck you off the waiver wire, and then you got to move. And so that was kind of, a weird day. And the conversation I had with Flo and Chris Greer was really positive, but ultimately frustrating because of the situation. Right. But I think it's good that going from last year, our conversation was, how fun is it to just be in the room? And now this year I was disappointed that I didn't make the active roster. So I think it's a good, sign in terms of that. And if I keep working, I think I'll be in a good spot.
Absolutely. As someone watching you, just that progression was really cool to see. And like you said, last year watching just to see your name, included. And then now this year it was like, man, Reid's looking good. I just want to know, how did the scouting report not have that athleticism in it? They're letting you get outside the pocket and chuck a 40-yard bomb and throw it into the end zone. That surprised me. You'd think they'd have a spy on you or something.
Yeah, I'm still shocking myself that maybe there is some athleticism. It's definitely not a part of my game, but a couple of times I broke away from somebody or, made somebody miss, and I was kind of like, oh, I guess I can do that. So that's always a good feeling too. You work on some stuff, and I really committed myself to this offseason program with Dave Paloka on our strength staff. And I mean, it showed up, and it was a good feeling to be able to, you know, really run away from some guys that I don't think a year ago I could have even had a chance at. So it was a good feeling.
How did that preparation change from going into year one to going into year two, and like things that you learned last year in order to prepare yourself to be a better quarterback year two?
Well, our conversation then was I was in a room with Tom Brady and Ryan Griffin and Blaine Gabbert, and I felt like I learned a lot from them. But then after, to go to Miami and get Ryan Fitzpatrick and learn from Tua, to completely changed, you know, perspective and kind of how Fitzy's path was so different than Tom's, but they both had the longevity aspect. So there's things that I could take from both of them that I think, you know, more apply to me. And I think going into the offseason, I knew what I needed to get better at and what it was going to take a step to potentially make the roster. And, you know, I felt like I was able to do that. And the resources was the biggest thing. You know, COVID the year before, a lot of the things I had to do were restricted, and it was in, you know, I was in Iowa in a gym that wasn't really made to, you know, for a professional athlete, if you want to put it that way. But, you know, some of the things that I got able to do this summer with our staff was everything that I wanted, you know, and the resources in terms of nutrition and the strength staff, recovery, all of those things. And that's been the best part for me.
Did you spend the whole offseason in Florida, or what did your offseason training look like going from an active roster guy into offseason mode?
So I went to San Diego, and they kind of said, you know, I asked after the season was over, you know, when can I get in the weight room? And they were like, get out of here, like go do something else for a little bit. You know, everybody kind of needs that time to recharge and replenish. And so I went to San Diego until the Super Bowl, and just kind of hung out with some of my buddies and stuff. It was ridiculous that, you know, that's where I get to go hang out now. And and then I came back to Florida, and I worked out all summer. And then at the end of the summer, after OTAs, I went back out to San Diego and stopped back in Iowa for just a weekend to play some golf with my dad, and then headed back for training camp. But in that whole middle section, you know, I was going 4 or 5 days a week and throwing on the weekends. And, you know, I treated it like it was my job, and was trying to be in the building from, you know, 8 a.m. until, you know, 4 or 5 to work on stuff. And we had a new coordinator, so I was learning a new offense, and that's the way I tried to treat it. And I think it paid off.
So last week, Reid, you're on the sidelines, you got a clipboard. What are you actually keeping track of with a clipboard? I feel like with modern technology, we don't need clipboards anymore. So what are you tracking?
So the Microsoft Surface, all the plays come back to the sideline, but they're just labeled as play 1, play 2, play 3, whatever. So if you have a long drive, sometimes it's hard to keep track of, you know, what plays were called in the middle. So I'm just jotting down, like, you know, what the play was. And sometimes if I see something, I'll write a little note to myself to bring back to the quarterbacks when we sit down to meet. But yeah, mostly I'm hearing the call and I'm writing it down so that when we go back over to talk over the plays, that, you know, we know which play it was, rather than just being like, I think play 5 was, you know, grouper swing or whatever it is.
Are you able to provide any like feedback, or is it mostly you just on the sideline watching, you know, Tua, and, you know, watching the starter, talking to the backup? You know, what's your role other than just tracking the plays for your own benefit?
What I think has been so cool is that Charlie's made it a group effort. So, you know, I have some responsibility in terms of what I'm supposed to be able to bring back and have a conversation about. In terms of meetings throughout the week, I'm able to contribute. And I think it's been really encouraging for me to feel like, you know, I'm contributing to what's happening on the field, even though, you know, I'm not even in a jersey. So Jacoby does a great job of having conversations with Charlie about play calls or what the, you know, next steps could be, as well as, you know, what they're seeing. And I think, you know, as I give input and things like that, it's productive for the group, hopefully. And, you know, there's a lot more listening than talking for sure. But if I do have something that I feel like needs to be said, then most of the time it's welcomed into the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's funny, like, we're the Underdog podcast, and at the beginning, your story is kind of like the underdog story with, you know, waiting your turn. And then when you get there, you show you belong. And I think in that recent preseason game, like, you showed you belong. You didn't look like an underdog. You looked like a talented guy who, like you said, you're competing for a spot. As you're kind of getting into the offense, you know, Jacoby's a little bit older than you. You and Tua are about the same age, I guess. But as you're getting into the offense, are you finding yourself picking it up? I mean, bouncing ideas? Is it real different than what you did at San Diego or what you saw in Tampa Bay? Or, you know, kind of the mental part of the game as you're continuing to improve. How do you feel that's coming along? Do you feel like it's faster this year?
It's coming along so well. And as you see things, especially from the quarterback position and the reps that you get in practice, it just kind of builds this, I don't know if it wouldn't be a dictionary, but it builds, what you've seen and then how you're able to process that information. It always becomes faster. Next time you see it, you're able to react a little bit quicker. And Jacoby's been a huge asset to me. We sit next to each other in meetings and, he'll lean over and say, ball should have gone here, or what do you think about this? Or, I'll say, I wouldn't have started there. What do you think? And stuff like that. And just having that to bounce ideas off of constantly has been so beneficial for me. And the fact that he hasn't, been like, shoo, go away, quit asking me questions has been super helpful. And I think I'm learning every day. And that's been now going to be the challenge is as the season goes on, you get less and less reps because you're prepping for another opponent. So it's about the starting quarterback. And so if I can make contributions in the game plan as well from the mental side, then that's, I think, the next step for me to be, a contributor.
Is it bittersweet at all that you're on Tampa Bay last preseason and then they go on to win the Super Bowl, right? And so you were part of that team for a while, but then, you get released and then you got to watch them, go and do what they did. What was that like for you?
Honestly, I was really happy, and it was awesome to watch them celebrate. Like, I was texting back and forth with Ryan Griffin during the parade and stuff, and it was awesome to see them have the success that I thought they were going to have, and that's why my agent and I thought that was going to be the best place to be. But I think I got so much better because I went to Miami, and once Tua became the starter, Fitzy didn't want reps. He said that he was going to help, coach Tua, and then recently he said that he just wanted to prove that he could come off the bench in 4 years and still play. And so that was the way that he challenged himself, is that I'm not going to throw, I'm not going to do anything, and I'm still going to go out on Sundays and play. And so for me, I got to take every single scout team rep. I got every rep that Tua didn't want. In routes on air, Tua's thrown to Devontae Parker and the first couple guys, and then Fitzy's like, yeah, you take them. So I got coached from Fitzy and the other coaches every day at practice. And I gained so much confidence from playing against the defense. And, it's scout team. They don't hit me. So if the play isn't open right away, then they're like, run around, do something, make a play. And so it was great for me to learn some of those, improvisation skills, because we didn't block everybody all the time. You're going against the one defensive line versus, your scout team guys. Sometimes I was able to make plays on my feet and, throw on the run and stuff that clearly translated to the game in Cincinnati. So that was huge for me, and just constantly getting coached on that stuff. So I think getting cut and ending up in Miami was a blessing in disguise, to answer your question. But yeah, I have no ill will towards the Bucs or anything, and it's going to be awesome to get to see them. I think we play them week 4 or 5, and to see some of those guys and get to talk about your journey and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty fun.
That's awesome. So running Reid Sinnett. I think that we can coin that right now. I'm going to start making t-shirts. No, I love it, man. So just, you were kind of hit on it a little bit. I was going to ask you, as a practice squad guy, like, what's your role day to day, like for scout team and prepping the defense, and like, I guess you're not taking the hits, but what's it like going against an NFL defense every day?
It's awesome. And so there's always things that I, am seeing, or that Fitzy talked about, or now Jacoby's talking about, that I can work on. And so it's even little stuff like I'm trying to throw no look passes and walkthroughs, because I know that they're watching me and it's at a slow tempo, and I'm seeing if I can still be accurate when I'm looking at a defender or understanding where guys are going to be. And so some of that stuff has made me so much better. And then I think it really helped with, team chemistry and my relationships on the team, because when we're running a scout card, if I can tell everybody what we're doing in our terms, it shows that I know what's going on, but also then we can have success because they know it's something that they've done, if that makes any sense. If I can turn their concept into something that we run, it all ends up being more efficient. And then playing against the one defense where they give you different looks, or you're throwing on really good corners and linebackers, it definitely, makes you better. And so now it's fun to, talk shit back and forth with Xavier Howard, who's probably the best corner in the league. And, he has said some very positive things to me. So that's always encouraging too, to hear from those guys and get feedback from the other side of the ball.
So Reid, I love watching like Hard Knocks and, a lot of the Amazon Prime, they got those shows that follow the teams, and you always see like the celebrities that come by training camp, and you had Guy Fieri a couple of years ago that came to the Raiders camp. And I got to imagine like Miami has got, some who's who that come by the team in the offseason and in training camp. Did you have any of that this year with, I know COVID's still kind of a thing, but like, did you have celebrities come by?
Honestly, no. And I think that's a Coach Flores thing that comes from the
Really?
Patriot way that, we keep everything pretty tight in house. But the biggest celebrity is Dan Marino sits in our meetings. So I get to hang out with Dan and I have a personal relationship with Dan Marino, which is something I never thought I'd get to say. So I think the coolest guy in Miami is still definitely Dan Marino. So he's at practice every day. He sits in our meetings and, again, gives great feedback and insights into coaching and teaching young guys like Tua and I. And it's really amazing the quarterback perspectives that I've gotten so far. And it makes me excited to keep, picking as much as I can from everybody.
Now, I'm curious about Marino here in the room, because Marino had one of those arms that, like, there might have been 5 guys ever to have an arm like Dan Marino. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you're watching film and Marino's like, yeah, I would have put it here. It's like, well, yeah, but you're Dan Marino. Like, is he able to relate to everybody else in the room? I mean, he's one of the greatest passers of all time.
Yeah. And he talks about how much the game has changed too, where he's like, we threw seams and go routes because that's what we could do. We had track stars that were faster than everybody, and the league just doesn't do that anymore because of how defenses are played and all the offensive scheme and stuff. But, we've had conversations of, what's everybody's favorite route to throw. And mine's like a middle in cut and stuff like that. And Jacoby's, something similar. And Dan's like, I just want to throw the go ball. So, the thought process and stuff is definitely different. But you're right. He is one of the best quarterbacks ever and has an arm that's generational. And I don't think we'll probably see anybody that throws it like he did.
That's crazy. I mean, you're a young guy. You're just getting started in your career. And so far you have shared a quarterback room with Tom Brady and Dan Marino. Yeah. I mean, talk about just being around greatness. That's phenomenal. So like when you're going week to week in your prep and you spent time with Brady, like I said, and now Tua, obviously they're both great competitors. They're both great athletes. They're, extremely talented quarterbacks. Just what's kind of the mood? What's the personalities like of working with the Tom Brady versus working with Tua and the coaching staff in Miami?
Well, what I'll say about Tom Brady and what he does so well is he's one of the best leaders of men I've ever seen. He gets the most out of everybody every day, and he has expectations that are set that, in Tampa, he had already showed that he has what it takes to win. 6 championships speak for itself. So everybody, when he has something to say, is willing to listen. And so I think that that's something different, that Tua, as a young guy, is earning those things and earning guys' respect. And I think he's definitely done that. But when you address the team or you address, certain players about issues, it definitely gets handled differently when you're a 20-year vet that's won 6 championships versus a young guy that's still, learning things for himself. And I mean, Tua is a great kid, and I think he's got some of the best instincts I've ever seen from a quarterback. So it's exciting to see him learn the game. And so it's also great for me that there's things that holes that have been filled because we're at different levels or have been taught different things. And so he's teaching me things about the RPO game. And then we talk about play action and mic points and things like that. And that's what I learned in college. So I love that back and forth. And, he's been a great resource for me. And I think we've developed a pretty cool relationship over this last summer and into this year.
I've noticed on Instagram the last couple of days that you're now reviewing movies.
Yes.
So I want to talk about this movie review thing. Where did this start? Why do you feel like you have the knowledge and the expertise to be reviewing movies on a social platform?
Okay, so here's the first thing is that we've already discussed that I'm a nerd about movies. And I've literally spent the entire summer, like I said, I would treat it like a job, and then I would get home and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go spend money or do anything like this, so I'm going to watch 2 movies. And so that's literally all I've done. And so I've kind of taken this rating system that I started doing when I was in college, where I would watch a movie and then I would kind of just try to keep track of what I had seen. And so now I have, this huge library of movies that I've seen and rated, and I want to talk about them all the time. And I have a buddy on the team, Matt Collins, who does some Instagram things and does, facts and things like that. And he's really good at it. And he just keeps telling me I should do it. And so I talked all summer about doing it. He and I talked about it, and even made some templates and stuff. And then he's like, just start doing it. So whenever I watch movies or I have a conversation about them, I'm just going to post them on my story and see what people think.
How's the feedback been?
It's been good. I'm shocked at how many people have been engaged with it. And I think it probably helped that, my Instagram following tripled pretty much after
right.
Natty. So I think there's people that are fascinated by it just because they've just now heard of me. Now, if it was, 2 months ago when I started, and it was all my high school friends that are like, nobody cares, man, that would be a totally different story.
What's your hottest movie take?
My hottest movie take?
Yeah. Like I see you're giving Wes Anderson movies high scores. And it's like, yeah, who doesn't give Wes Anderson movies high scores? But tell me something that you like or dislike that the general populace would be like, Reid's out of his mind.
Well, so here's the problem I'm having now is, people tell me that I need to watch, these movies from the 70s or 80s or, that are childhood movies for somebody. And they just they don't do it for me. Like, I can objectively say that they're great movies, but to me, I'm like, I get why Back to the Future is a great movie and I can see it, but it doesn't do it for me like some other people do. So Back to the Future is probably one of them. I watched West Side Story the other day for the first time, and I was like, it's a great musical. I get it, but it doesn't hit me like I think it's, like some people talk about it.
Now, that
when hold on, Tom. When Marty McFly is skateboarding down the street to Power of Love to go over to Wake Up Doc Brown, that just does nothing for you?
No. I'm not saying that. It's a great movie, and I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it is not like a top tier, top 5 movie for me. Like I think for some people it probably is.
Now, the official Mr. Movie is a Moonlighter. So maybe we've got to connect Reid with Mr. Movie.
Yes.
Yeah, we can make that happen. I'll tell
you what, the not a hot take, but I've found that there's I've started to really enjoy some foreign movies, and I'm in this little Japanese anime kind of niche right now. And I might start making some recommendations, based on that.
Make some recommendations. We'll be sure to take you up on it and then let you know what we think.
Okay. Well, if you do want one,
yeah, that's what we're here for.
It's called Your Name. Your Name.
That's the name of it?
Yes, that is the name. YOUR name. It was one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen, and one that I had on this list that I wanted to watch, and I threw it on, and I haven't stopped talking about it for 2 weeks. I got our IT department. I got 5 guys to watch it this weekend, and so that was the entire topic at breakfast on Sunday morning.
And this is anime?
It's anime, yes. It's a Japanese movie. You can watch it in English, which is the way to do it, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Some people, a lot of foreign movies I'll watch in the native language and watch with subtitles.
Yeah, what was the one? What was it? A Korean film a couple of years ago that won?
Parasite. Yeah.
Parasite.
If you haven't seen that too, you should watch that.
I've watched that one. That one's one of those movies that I still think about a lot. Mm-hmm. That guy might still be in the basement,
That's a fantastic movie. Have you seen Zodiac?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a Korean version by the same director from Parasite. It's not the same movie, but it's called Memories of Murder, and it's fantastic also. Very similar to Zodiac, kind of has similar vibes.
So the way I go with movies is this is when my wife's not around, because there's movies that you watch with your wife. Tom knows about this. And then there's movie when Tori's asleep or when Tori's out of town, these are Tim movies. And so I'll stick to the obvious sports movies, but then the David Fincher. And so Zodiac, I think, is a David Fincher movie. And then, who's our guy that did Pulp Fiction? Tarantino, Wes Anderson. Those are my wife's not going to watch Bottle Rocket, but I'll watch Bottle Rocket. Right. Yeah. And so those are the Tim movies that I get to watch.
Good. I'm glad at least you've got some taste too.
Well, yeah, I mean, but those are the great American directors, right?
Of course.
So you gotta know that stuff before you go to Your Name. I have never even heard of Your Name.
Well, I hope it flies up your list, because it honestly might be a top 5 of mine all time.
This will be my first anime movie, I'm pretty sure.
I think you'll get over it very quickly.
My repertoire is pretty much Disney Plus, if you're familiar with the genre of family movies that we watch on Sunday nights. I love this. I love the knowledge. I don't know, but I just can't disagree. I can't agree on the Back to the Future. I don't know what to do for you, Reid. I don't know how to help you.
The one that hurt you guys so much. It's still like over a 90 for me. It was a great movie. It just, it doesn't have the nostalgia factor for me. It doesn't, which I think is what people love about it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great in every way.
It's just wrong.
Michael J. Fox was a phenomenon. Like, there's just not going to be this like 5'5" charisma dynamo like Michael J. Fox. I mean, Secret to My Success. You seen that one?
I haven't.
Terrible movie. All Michael J. Fox charisma.
It's all him.
It's just all charisma.
Okay.
There was like a run there of Michael J. Fox movies that were just based on his personality, and the movies weren't great. Secret of My Success, I love that movie though. That's funny you use that one. Teen Wolf.
Yeah. Well, the other one, to kind of bring this full circle, I was just thinking about, movies, the Dolphins, Dan Marino. And I still remember when I'm a little kid and Tom called me up on the phone and said, you got to watch Ace Ventura Pet Detective. And Tom basically told me the entire movie. I can still remember standing in my kitchen on the phone while Tom's explaining how funny Ace Ventura Pet Detective is. And, you're a movie review guy. You're in the quarterback room with Marino. I'm guessing you brought it up.
We've talked about it briefly. It's one of those things that he said was like, it was really fun to do at the time, but I don't know that it's one of his, proudest moments.
Reid, do me a favor on this one. Ask Dan Marino for me.
Yes.
I like this. Like the star, the hot babe in that movie, outside of Courtney Cox, was Sean Young. So Sean Young was like a babe of the 80s and 90s. And if you look at her IMDb page, she was in a bunch of great, great movies. And then she kind of went crazy and was never heard from again. And so what I'd like you to ask Dan Marino is be like, hey, how hot was Sean Young like in the 90s? Because that does not connect with people that are like under 45 years old. They're like, who? Sean Young, So ask Dan Marino about Sean Young.
Okay. I'll be like, hey, I heard about this lady named Sean Young. What do you think? And I'll see what he says.
What are your Sean Young takes?
Yeah, because she was in No Way Out with Cosner like 3 years before that. And then she tried to be Catwoman on like Letterman and just went off. She went crazy. So ask Marino about Sean Young. All right. And then report back.
Yeah.
Okay. For part three.
Yeah. We'll talk about it next season.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So Reid, you're an Iowan, Johnston, Iowa, but you go to college in San Diego. You're playing your pro ball down in Florida. So the way I think we got to wrap up this episode is with an Iowa quiz. Okay. So you've already done the 5 big questions. So the last, the 5 big questions for you on round 2 are going to be Iowa-based questions for you, right? Some of these are kind of layups for you. Okay. But in the movie review vein, give us your Field of Dreams movie review.
Oh, my goodness. This is going to sound so bad, too. I should have rewatched it when they had the game at the Field of Dreams. I haven't seen it since I was like 10. So we played it in Dyersville in a Little League tournament or something like that, AAU maybe. And so we played, we went to the Field of Dreams and did all that stuff. So I remember seeing the movie then, but I remember very little of it now, which is a problem. So I'll have to revisit it for you. But Kevin Costner did it for me in Yellowstone. I think he does a good job in Field of Dreams. I got through about 20 minutes of Dances with Wolves, and it wasn't doing it for me. And I think that might be one of the worst movies to ever win an Oscar. So that's my Kevin Costner take for you.
Reid, you just got uninvited from that 3rd episode.
Is that Dances with Wolves or the Field of Dreams?
I think it's anything Costner.
Yeah, just like our goal of the podcast this year, Reid, is to get Costner on the pod. So we are pro Costner in every way here. Obviously Dances with Wolves is not my favorite Costner flick, but there's that one scene where he's riding with no arms on the horse, and it's American West heroism. It's like 5 Goes West with humans.
Okay.
And
maybe
then
I'll survive the 3 hours and 20 minutes of it and really, get it back for you.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, there's worse things that you could say about Cosme than that.
What's the hockey? Is it Slapshot that he's in?
Oh no, he's not in Slapshot.
He's in a hockey movie, isn't he?
Tom?
Oh, I'm going to research.
I do not know if he's in a hockey movie. He's done about every sport, maybe except for hockey and football. I don't know if he's done football.
Okay.
He did draft day.
What is it?
He did draft day for football.
That's right.
Not hockey. I swear he's in a hockey movie. Have you guys seen Yellowstone? He's pretty good in Yellowstone.
Love Yellowstone.
Yellowstone's fantastic.
All right, second question here, Reid. You're trying to dodge my questions.
I'm scared of them, honestly.
So this has come up both at the Field of Dreams game and then also with College Game Day, being in Iowa last week. But do you know the difference between field corn and sweet corn?
My first job was in a cornfield too, at Pioneer. So
I
should know the difference. I don't.
So field corn or sweet corn, obviously, you eat it, right? Yeah. And then field corn's like they feed it to animals or they make it into ethanol and corn syrup.
Okay.
And so like you see all these videos of like non-Iowa people going into a cornfield trying to eat the corn. And it's like, you guys are idiots.
See, I did know that. I thought we were getting at like the intricacies of what corn made it each. I did know that. So I should have at least given you an effort there.
I figured you knew that.
Yeah. I should have given you a better effort.
So when you're talking to your teammates in Miami and say a couple of them want to come back to Johnston, Iowa with you in the offseason, right? What's like the number one food spot that you're taking your Miami Dolphins buddies here in Iowa?
I think the best thing that Iowa did is have their best pizza at a gas station. People just they're not able to fathom that that's a thing.
Right.
And that Casey's breakfast pizza is my favorite thing to come back home to. Like the morning after the day after I land, I'm getting Casey's breakfast pizza no matter what. So that's definitely one of the places I got to take them. And then I think Cactus Bob's is always a great, it's just a big hearty meal. And the same with Jethro's is kind of the same way too.
Yeah. Tom, you okay with those picks, Tom?
Absolutely. I love Cactus Bob's. That's a great Johnston choice. Yeah. I don't know. You can't go wrong. That Charlotte's Kitchen, a couple of Johnston kids opened up Charlotte's Kitchen. Mm-hmm. That's pretty darn good.
It is really good. I've been there a couple times, but I don't know if that's the staple that I grew up on yet. But
no.
That's pretty well.
But they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job.
Great job.
All right. Another trivia question here for you. Who's the last Iowan to start at quarterback for the Dolphins?
Iowan for the Dolphins? Oh, goodness. I didn't know there were any other quarterbacks besides Kurt Warner that came from Iowa.
He's been on the podcast.
Okay.
He played under Nick Saban. When Nick Saban was the head coach of the Dolphins, this Iowan played quarterback.
Where did he go to college?
Iowa State University.
I have no idea.
Sage Rosenfels, Reid.
Oh my goodness. That's another terrible effort out of me.
You got to know that.
I immediately went Seneca Wallace, and I was like, he didn't play for the Dolphins, and that was the only thing I could come up with. Dang.
I'm surprised they don't have like Sage Rosenfeld's posters all over the facilities.
No, it's mostly just Dan Marino. I don't know that Sage outdid Dan Marino, but
okay. Well, we'll have to connect you and Sage then.
Yeah, you please do.
So the final question here, and obviously, Tom is a record-setting middle school football coach. He's coached, the Sinnett brothers. I don't think he coached you, but he coached your brother.
That's right.
So what advice for Tom as he leads the Johnston Dragon middle schoolers to another undefeated season this year? What advice do you have, Reid, for Tom in this football season?
Tom, have you installed power yet?
Yes.
Okay. Run power. Right, power left. Power right, power left.
Perfect.
Is that going to get can the middle schooler B team handle that?
I hope so. I really hope so. We definitely did line up at practice today, and we called 9 toss, and a kid goes, "Okay, coach, on 9, I go." I said left, buddy. You go to the left. 9 tosses. Oh yeah. That's what I thought, coach. So we're working on it, Reid. We're working on it.
Jacoby keeps talking about the high school team that he's going to coach when he's done playing. He's got a playbook and all this stuff ready. And I think about it'd be awesome to go back and coach, young football players because I think they're impressionable. And I think I would just get so frustrated because be like, what, we can't alert this? The nose is up right. Can we go the other way, please? The safety's rotating this way. Can we not figure that out? Like I would struggle with coaching kids.
We can't go on two, Reid. We can't go on two.
We can't mix the cadence. We can't in the NFL either. So that would drive me nuts enough that I think it's going to keep me out of coaching middle school football.
When you were in high school, when you came up behind center, were you reading the defense at all, or were you just thinking about the play that you had to run?
That's a great question. I'm going to tell you that I was reading the defense, but I don't know if that's 100% true. I think I probably had an idea at least of what they were doing and where the voids were, but I wasn't, necessarily going, oh, this is cover 3 or this is cover 4, or, these are the weak spots. But I think pretty early on in college, I did start doing that. And I remember asking Coach Cruzy, I'd dip out of my 8th grade, study hall class and go try to bother him about watching film or talking about game plan stuff. And he's like, I'm teaching, geometry right now. I can't do this. So I always wanted, a little bit more out of the offense and stuff like that. But it was, I don't know that I had that much defensive knowledge at that time.
Tom, are you teaching these kids to read the D or not?
Well, technically, yes. We do like one-man reads. Like we're going to line up. And if he's really close, we're going to try to throw it to this guy. It's not like true reads, like the stuff that Reid would be doing. We're so far away from that. But the biggest read is, okay, we got our 6'3" kid out there. If their corner is under 5'3", just go. Throw it to that guy.
If there's a significant height mismatch, please just throw it to that person.
That's an automatic.
Just throw it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt about Regan Seams. If he was out there and there was one person on him, I was like, Regan, you're getting the ball.
Just throw it up.
Yeah, please. Just go rebound.
Hey, Reid, this has been awesome, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to come back on the pod. Good luck to you. Obviously, we're cheering for you guys all the time here on Twitter and on TV. So a lot of Dolphins fans here in Central Iowa. Everybody's cheering for Reid Sinnett.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Anytime you want to have me on, I'm happy to come talk movies or whatever else. But we're always rooting on Johnston football, and I really do appreciate you guys for having me on.
So that wraps up today's interview with Moonlighter Reid Sinnett, and it's going to be really fun to follow his season this year with Miami and also his career. It's always fun to talk to somebody here on the podcast where all of their career is still out in front of them. So often we talk to athletes, their careers in the rearview mirror, but with Reid, everything's still out in front of them, and that's a lot of fun to talk to guys in that situation. It's exciting. But let's get down to business. We got to talk Cosmequest. So last week, I got an email from a loyal Moonlighter out in the state of Colorado who apparently knows Kevin Costner's son. So he knows Kevin Costner's son and said, hey, I'm going to try to get me in contact with Kevin Costner's son to get him here on the Moonlight Graham Show. And so that was about 7 days ago now where I heard from that Moonlighter out in Colorado. And let me tell you what, folks, I have not heard back from that Moonlighter as of yet. So the quest for Costner still rolls on. I got a couple of things up my sleeve, a couple of different angles. We're still working here, guys. We're still working. The goal is to get Costner on the pod here. I think maybe the end date before that window closes is that Yellowstone premiere date. So that I think is in the first week of November. So we got about a month and a half that we have now to work to get Costner here on the pod while he's going to be out there doing press for Yellowstone. So we got a lot of balls in the air on Costner right now. Obviously, none of them have come to fruition yet. You guys would be the first to know, but we're still working. The quest for Costner goes on. This is not something where we take one crack at it and give up. This is not something where we send him one email or one phone call and give up. This is an all-in effort, all hands on deck, all Moonlighters, all aboard, and we're going to make this happen. Well, I sure hope we're going to make this happen. The other thing that I was pointing out is I was digging through the stats of the podcast last week, and it's always a fun thing. I've always been a stats guy, and one of the things I like about the pod is looking at how many downloads we have every week, where they're coming from, all that stuff. And so I looked up how many countries have downloaded a podcast episode of the Moonlight Graham Show this season, and it's 47. This is remarkable, and I think it's got to be like just some bots out there in different countries that are downloading the episode over, in bot farms or whatever. I don't really understand how that works, but it's always funny, right? It's funny to see that we had one download from Afghanistan last week and we had one download from Iraq during this season. It's like, man, either we have a loyal listener in Iraq and Afghanistan, or there's just some bot there that is downloading Moonlight Graham episodes. So either way, I think it's kind of funny, and I wanted to pass that on to you guys, the listeners. So thanks for listening to this week's episode with Reid Sinnett. Special thanks to the Moonlight Graham Show crew, the brothers Andy and Neil, who help out with every episode, help us book those episodes. The trusted co-host Tommy Griffin, who is on his A game this week with Reid Sinnett. And then, of course, the guys behind the scenes, Brendan Gargano, who does all of our artwork for every episode, maybe the most talented artist I've ever met. Thank you, Brendan. And then also Brian Sandvig, the producer of the Moonlight Graham Show, who does all the behind-the-scenes work to make everything sound so great. And thank you to the Moonlighters, to the listeners out there. Thanks for supporting us, for downloading episodes, for leaving us 5-star reviews. We really appreciate it, and for following us on social media. You guys are the best. Have a great week, Moonlighters.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.